Welcome.
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 To breakfast together. Hello, merhaba.
Kalimera.
Hi allesammans.
Bom dia.
Another Sunday, another episode, isn't it? We're back with another episode, and today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is international dating. We're all located in different countries.
Spicy.
Yes, and all have different friends all around the world, and I'm sure we all have different opinions and stories about this topic. I would like to say that we want you to understand that this is a very subjective episode, and this is just opinions of our own selves. So please take it with a pinch of salt. No offense. There may be some stereotypes over there, but this is all very subjective and opinion of our own self. We're gonna start with a very interesting thing, which is a typical international first date. What do people do in different countries when they go on a first date? For example, in Norway, Irena, can you tell us what people usually do when they meet the first time?
Well, in Norway, the funny thing is that it's quite common to go for a walk. For a walk in the forest, for example, like for a hike, actually, on the first date, which
Wow.
I honestly do not find as such a good idea because uh, you know, if you go to a forest, it happened to me once. You go to a forest with a person that you don't know,
Oops.
and then if the
Sounds like a
date
great idea.
right, if the date is bad, like you can't just say, oh well, like, oh sorry, my time is out, I have to go. Like, you actually have to come together to a point where you can finally take like the public transport and you can go back to the city. So basically in the forest you're stuck with this person for at least 3 hours. So like, I don't know if it's a
Sounds like
good date,
nightmare a little bit.
but it is it it is quite common. Actually, my date in the forest, I have to say, like, it was quite nice. It was a good it
So
was a
you
good
had date in the
hike.
forest.
Once, but it was not with a Norwegian. It
Okay.
was not with a Norwegian guy. But it was not a very bad date. But we decided not to pursue it, and it was mutual.
I love the phrase "date in the forest." It sounds like
Wow.
it's almost like someone is mentoring you. Like we can go for date in forest.
If someone is inviting you to the forest in Turkey, please do not accept.
But it was also so sweet because like, we could later come back to this topic, but about paying for someone on the first date, the guy took like two muffins for us. Like, he
Oh,
actually
very
like thought
cute.
this through. Like,
How about
yeah, I thought
tea
that it
and
was so
thermos?
cute. Yeah, 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 like, and then two muffins, and then I was like, oh.
And they also show that
That's
they
very
can
sweet.
prepare. Like they can plan
Yes, yes, and
ahead. They
that's
can.
Yeah. And their physical
Yes,
condition
Yeah.
is enough.
that's why Greeks never
Do you
do it.
guys do you guys go to the
It
forest
was a
in
tough
Greece?
hike.
no. Actually, we don't. We don't. I think we're not like so active as people in like Northern Europe. We're gonna either. I think Telemaco, you can agree here. We're gonna either probably choose like a cafe or a restaurant, or like a bar most of the times. But I think it depends also with the age. I think I personally, well, like in my like when I was younger, people would tend to in let's say between the age of 14 or 13 years that you start like dating, or 15, let's say, to 18, 20, you normally go to bars or
Mhm.
cafes because it's like cheaper. Where when you have a job and you have like a let's say more money to spend and you want to impress also the other person, you're probably gonna choose a restaurant. I think that's more or less the experience, at least from my experience in Greece.
Actually, I don't like the restaurant. I'm not sure if it's so common in Greece. I mean, I don't know if it was like it's about the age group,
I, th-
or because again, that's
I
also the
think it
thing
has.
because depends on which age you were like in that
I think
country.
it has to do with age group, because even if it's not a date, I think personally with my friends I enjoy more eating on restaurants nowadays than going to a bar or cafe that in the past we used to spend a lot of hours and maybe play card games, where now it's like you appreciate more food.
But is it like a fancy restaurant or more like a tavern with chipuros
I
and
mean, yes,
mezenitas?
depends. Also,
Depends
you
on the
have to
girl.
understand like that. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Will depends on the girl. If you want to impress the other part, girl or a man, depends. You can go to a fancy restaurant, but you can also be, if you see that it's more relaxed, then you don't need to. You can just like choose a tavern, like a taverna in Greek. I think. But I don't think that
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
normally you will see people going for walks. Maybe nowadays yes, but in the past it was used to be more like cafes, restaurant, bars. That's from my experience.
It's very similar in Turkey.
Yeah, I guess after Corona, people started going on walks more suddenly in Greece because they could
Really?
go out in the pandemic.
Yes,
They
It's an
learned.
excuse to
They
go out.
learned how to go for walks.
Yeah, it's like when I was living in Greece, I never even heard somebody of going on a hike, and suddenly the pandemic, everyone was like, "Hike, going on a hike to the mountains in Athens," and I'm like, "Since when are
Really?
you going on hikes?"
Appreciating the
That's
outdoors.
so interesting.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
appreciating like the five trees we have in Athens. They appreciated all five of
Yeah.
them. Like I think the most typical thing, I think, going for a drink. I would say it's definitely not walking. I think I've never heard of this. And I think this is because I think people are focused a lot on like talking to the other person, and and I think it's also like a southern thing that you also because you have a lot of body
exactly.
language and you have a lot of paraverbal cues, so you want to sit next to the other person, like in front of the
Totally.
other person, and be able to see them and observe them because that actually gives you a lot of information about how
Interpretation
they.
of how the person is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly, yeah. Also, how the
Yeah.
person is as a
Performance
person,
needs
how
to
they
begin.
behave. Yeah, exactly. And so I think usually people usually choose maybe a cafe, which is it could be either friendly or like a kind of early date, or usually it's like going for a drink. That's for me like that was also always like the typical thing that people do when they go on first or second date.
But I have a question here to everybody. Would you like choose like a cafe that is not so noisy, or you will go to a bar that sometimes people will tend to go to a bar because it's more noisy. You might feel more relaxed there. Where when it's like a cafe where nobody's speaking or it's like more quiet, then you might feel like a bit more embarrassed to talk or like to open up. Like, what do you think, people?
And you need a couple of shots before you do that, you
You're
mean?
right. Right. So, what's your opinion?
I personally do not drink, so for me, like I kind of prefer to. I'm very picky when it comes to dates, places, because I do not want to end up in a bar where the only thing I can order is Coke. Because like then I feel like a child. So like when people invite me somewhere, I usually look actually through the menu if they have something to drink that's suitable for me. And then like of course I think ideally would be for me it would be a quiet place though, so we can actually hear each other, so we can actually like connect, you know just actually to know what the person is thinking. But Asa, what about you?
I think there are two aspects to this. One is that if you just meet someone, let's say online, then it's very interesting how usually people, at least in Poland and Turkey, they tend to choose a public place, and that is due to safety reasons. And that's why when you said that it
Mm,
may be popular to go to the forest on the first date in Norway, I think it shows a lot about
The culture.
that trust and safety, which is pretty
Hmm.
high,
Yeah.
exactly.
since nobody's going to suspect that something's going to happen to you. I think it's
Hmm.
extremely important that on a first date you are responsible and you should think about safety. So you go to a public place. It shouldn't be a bar, most probably. It should be something neutral, and you also choose.
Hmm.
You also see how what the person chooses, whether the person goes for an alcoholic sort of drink beverage or first for coffee and tea, and maybe that person prefers to walk afterwards. And then maybe when things are going sort of well and you see the person in a very public and normal environment, you may proceed to the bar later on for a drink. But it hardly ever starts in there unless you're already in a bar and
Hmm.
you are meeting with that person in that bar at the first time, right? It's not like the place you choose when you have a choice, but the
We
place where
plan.
you just met, when you just met. So I think that's that are the two main elements. And yeah, it's very interesting because we're talking about a lot of food and so on, but who is paying for all of this? Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there are different tendencies and sort of dependencies of who pays for what in the north, in the south. How does that look? Because yeah,
What
Telemachos,
about
you're like
Germany? 'Cause,
smiling.
yeah, you guys
Yeah.
live in Germany.
Yeah, because it's funny because I think that all of our regional cultures have the same etiquette when it comes to that, I assume. Like, because I think both like in southern and eastern Europe, it's more common that like the man pays for the first drink or first dinner or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that was also like that's also like a typical thing. Like even today in Greece, even though sometimes like what usually people do is like they do kind of like I pay the first one, you pay the second one kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
kind of have
Mm.
progressed
That's
in that sense.
hmm
Even though like I think the previous generations probably like the man was expected to pay for I don't know many dates or I don't know like for all of the food when going outside or of the drinks when going outside. But I think it's changed in that sense, which is in contrast to, for example, to Germany and I assume many of the northern European countries where I guess it's like people are more expected to pay just half and half or each their own, uh, but also like maybe like this like my turn your turn kind of thing would also work. But I think that
Hmm.
I've also heard stories of Greek friends coming to Germany for a visit and trying to like to buy shots for some girls they want to approach, and they get the shots back at them like rejected
Because
because
no.
the girls don't
yeah.
Whoa.
accept those things here.
Oh my
So
god.
I think it was like a very like culture shock, and
Wow.
yeah, it's a funny thing that happens in these cases. I don't know, like Dim, if you had a similar experience. I don't know if you have bought many people shots
In
in
general,
Germany.
I am the person that buy the shots, yes, but I don't I normally do it for my friends, like not in their first date. But yeah, I think people in Germany they tend to share the bill, and that's what I've heard from friends and from people that they live here for many years. Whereas Dilema has already mentioned, in Greece is traditionally men should pay in the beginning, and because of this idea of that the men should take care of the partners, and I think this is like a shared common idea that they exist in the south, and I guess also in other countries. But on the other hand, I like we have this concept of philoxenia, the hospitality in Greece, and a lot of times it comes, yes, it comes with that you need to you care about the person, so it's like it can extend to the dating, I would say. So like pain can be seen as part of showing generosity. And I think
Hmm.
that's from my circles. I got this like from my family or my friends. I get this feeling of being like generous, but could be also that you want to show that you're generous to impress the other person.
I think it's nice. It's a nice gesture. Like I think it's yeah. If you explain your intentions, right? Like I think even in a northern country like that, you say like, hey, like I would really love
Yeah.
to treat you for a drink. Being sincere, I think that they would accept. But it's like it's a common in Norway. It's the same thing as what you described, Telemachos. Like it's I've heard from a lot of men that like well Norwegian women that like they don't really accept the drinks and or they share the bill or they could even pay for the man like and then I come from a completely opposite culture as you also described like in
Hmm.
Greece like where it's actually kind of expected at least many women do expect the men to pay on the first date and it comes to in some cases it comes to the extreme of like if he did not pay then it's unlikely that I would see him again which is like for me is kind of wow. Well, I personally. I think that I mean, of course, I cannot remember on all the dates, and now you already know the muffin story, so we could count it as that he paid for me. He paid for that muffin,
For the muffin.
but I,
His mom probably made it.
I think a good rule is what we also see is that the one who invited you on the date should pay. For example, I think like it's a good rule, but I don't really. I personally do not expect the man to pay on the first or the second date. Actually, never. Like I always offer to pay my part, and then if the man offers me to pay for the drink or for the meal, like I accept it, and I'm saying like, oh well, I'm so grateful, and this is great. I've never really had a problem with that. Like most of the men have treated me on the first or on the second date. I really do not see it as an issue here in Norway, and that. But then again, like it's not a deal breaker for me personally. I don't think it's that important. It doesn't show like any any qualities of that person really. Like
Yeah,
it's just a gesture. It's a symbol.
yeah, I've seen people fighting for.
In Eastern cultures, right? Like Iran, like yeah, like Middle East, like no,
Yeah.
yeah, like
No, in Turkey, people are fighting
okay.
to pay, and it's impossible for the lady to pay pretty much at all. And in general,
Wow.
the paying is
Wow.
very, very serious. It's you need to pay. I mean, yes, people sometimes pay later on, let's say, but if you're on a date, then it's absolutely impossible you're going to pay anything. And I think this went to extremes where some people are also using and abusing that because they know that the guy is going to pay, no matter how wealthy or not he is. Some ladies are using this, unfortunately, but there are good and bad people everywhere. So
Mm. Mm.
But back to the question, Irena.
Can I have like a quick comment because it's directly
Please,
related
please.
to this topic of the pain? No, it just came to mind this, and Dimi, probably you also are familiar with this, the bathroom trick that we do in
Uh-huh.
Greece,
Oh, what? Tell us
where
more about it.
you're basically going to the bathroom and on the way back you pay
Ah,
without telling other
oh my
people.
god,
And like you come back, everything is
in
fine,
Turkey
and
they
at
do
the
the
end,
same
like
thing.
people have to pay, like pay
Yeah, yeah.
what?
Yeah,
It's kind of the surprise, like
yes, they avoid
the
fighting.
yeah.
And a
Wow.
funny anecdote. Like I was on a date with a German girl, and I wanted to do like the bathroom trick, uh, but the most German thing happened because they did not accept credit cards,
Oh my god.
and I had no cash with
oh
me,
my
like
god.
no cash with me. So I then I told her, "Look, I tried to do that, but I actually have I cannot pay for
Actually,
not
you
even
have to
my
pay for
drink.
me.
Oh
So
my
you
god.
pay for me," which in some ways the most German feminist thing that can happen.
Oh my god.
Wow.
But
I can
did
assume.
she accept? Was it all good?
Yeah, no, no, like like we
You
I
figure
paid
it
like the
out.
next one or
Yeah.
something.
Ah,
Like you figure this stuff out, but it was a
okay.
very like funny like way it backfired and
Right,
boomeranged
right.
back to me the Greek tradition.
But now you always come prepared, right? So you go to all the dates with the cash in your pockets.
Always. No,
No, no, I
no,
never have
Telemachos,
cash with
always. You have to. You have to learn your lessons. Back to what I think everybody mentioned that I feel like in my opinion it's way better when it's like a relaxed environment when like for example if you pay this time I can pay the next time or if you pay the first drink I can pay the second drink and that's what normally happens in Europe in Berlin especially where like somebody will pay the first one and the next one will be no please I will take the next one so that's what I feel like I like more when there's like a balance and you don't have to it's just gonna be natural and everybody will pay for some part. I don't like this version of that I've heard sometimes that people say in the end of when they get
Yeah,
a,
it's
receipt that they will have to pay and split exactly or you send me you transfer me money it's gonna be you don't have to pay like the specific amount or like whatever I got for you you have to pay exactly the same one for me it's like you pay and then I'm gonna pay it's that's the gesture in the end.
Yeah.
You know what? I've heard because I don't know. Can I do a promotion for another podcast?
Sure.
I mean, they did the promotion for us. I recently participated in Dating Beyond Borders podcast, and there is an interview with me on Norwegian dating and Ukrainian dating. If you like, you can go and check it out on Marina's page. Marina is a great YouTuber, and she knows a lot about different cultures and languages, and she also talks about international dating. So she was mentioning again, like I base this information on her because I have no idea that in the Netherlands this comes to extreme. They have an
Yeah,
app
going
called Tiki,
Dutch, which
apparently.
means you have to literally count everything
Exactly, going Dutch,
for the
right?
coin.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there is
It's not a joke. It actually
there is a
exists.
phrase. There is a phrase in English.
Really?
Okay.
Oh yeah,
So I've
yeah. You
talked to
count
Dutch people
exactly,
about this, and they have
exactly.
confirmed.
Hmm.
Not only that, because for example, in Norway, like people, I feel like people are quite relaxed. Like, yes, there is this, but this is not about dating, but in general, you have to like buy OB, you have to bring your own booze to the party, things like that. Sometimes you bring your own food, like but it's more about contributing and things like that. And if you did not bring anything, it's okay. People will share like a bottle of beer with you or two or a glass of wine. It's totally no stress. No one will ever ask you money for that in Norway, but in the Netherlands, according to Dating Beyond Borders, like they have this app called Tiki. So it's like money, it's like Venmo in the States, and in Norway you have Vips. So they sometimes they send a request for one glass of wine that you drank. They sent like a tiki for like €2,
Okay.
€3. like,
Wow.
like like what you were mentioning, Dim, is it's totally the
Yeah,
opposite.
yeah, yeah.
Like
That's too
I
much.
I got scared when I
Those
heard that.
stories happened, unfortunately, not only. I think it also depends. We have the stingy people in general, and I've heard about this with Dutch. I experienced the same with Dutch people. I didn't have to pay for one glass of wine, but I have experienced people who wanted exactly to share, not to share, to actually to share the bill, but also to pay exactly the amount. But I also know, I'm not going to mention the nationality. I'm not going to mention anything. It's a friend of a friend, but who was dating for quite some time. Two nationalities were involved, so it's proper international dating, and one is okay. It's Turkish. I'm going to say it because it's many many Turkey. You're not going to find this guy anyway. However, once he broke up with the girl who was from Germany, he decided to go German on her because he sent her a message with all the things he paid for, and he said, "You need to pay me back." When they broke up, so that is
Wow.
something
Oh my god.
really
Oh,
interesting.
Wow. What was her
Ooh.
reaction?
So
Did
it
you
depends on the
know?
person, you never know.
Like, what was her reaction? Do you know?
Uh, I'm sure she blocked him everywhere. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Friend of a friend. I was like, this is shocking. Yeah, exactly. So, but I've heard
Should
that,
that
and I was like,
take all of the money
wow,
back?
this
Come
is
on. That's what the app is there for.
I don't think it happened. He went German on her, she went Turkish on him. That was fair. Yeah.
Wow, that was a lot of cultural influence.
Oh my god.
Exactly. A lot of international dating over there.
This was the end of part one. And if you are interested in more international dating, we invite you for the next episode where we will discuss more on this topic. Stay tuned.
thank you, everybody. Stay tuned.
Till then.
Thank you for listening.
See you next time.